We are hungry. The first day of school was cold. Looking outside made me shiver, but mommy said that being in 3rd grade was excuse enough for me to walk home alone. She had gotten a new job, and dad's commute was too long for him to have the energy to pick me up. Jem found this hilarious. You're going to walk home alone, he laughed. You're afraid of, like, everything. I put my hands on my hips and looked up at him. I'm not. Jem put his face very close to mine. Who knows, maybe a big bad monster will kidnap you. He shambled towards me, his hands raised like a zombie. I giggled. Mommy got mad. I could see it on her face. Jem, you're going to scare your sister, she frowned at him. Don't do that. Then she turned to me. Your brother's just joking, dear. She leaned in and messed up my hair. Mom. I smoothed my hair back. And now I was walking home alone for the first time. I felt like a ninja on a secret mission, albeit a very cold one. I could only imagine that my cheeks were red from the cold and my hands were firmly jammed in the pockets of my coat. Then, I noticed a van pulling up next to me. A man looked out. He had a huge hat on his head and a huge scarf and big sunglasses covered his face. Hey, kid. Do you know what I have here? His voice was gruff. A puppy. Puppy. I loved puppies. Daddy said that we had one, long ago, when I was a baby and Jem was 7, but something terrible had happened. Jem wouldn't talk about it, and mommy and daddy were the same. I stepped closer to the van. Then I remembered mommy telling me not to get into cars with anyone I didn't know. So I hesitated. The man looked at me. Come on, kid. I've got gummy bears and chocolate and chips here. I'll give you some if you just step into the car for me. I could hear whining from the back of the car. Is that the puppy? I asked. The man followed my gaze. Oh yes. I've got even more of them at home. Black ones and white ones and tan ones. He licked his lips and looked at me. Come on now, get in the car like a deer. Okay, I said, and hopped into the car. There was a screen between the front and the back. Where's the candy? The man didn't say anything, only looked at me. So I did what I always did, talk. You know, my brother is at home alone. He's really bored. Do you mind if we pick him up? The man looked at me. Alone? He said. Where do you live? I directed him until we reached my house. The lights were off. I turned to him. I'm hungry, I complained. He glanced at me. Then mommy and daddy stepped out from behind the door frame. Daddy looked hungry and mommy looked like she could eat a whole man. What is this? The man looked worried. I turned to him and smiled. Mommy told me to bring home dinner. And men like you are the easiest to bring home. After all, we are hungry. I need to keep my apartment room checked. I have sleep paralysis a lot. Like a lot. I've been having them at least 10 times a year since I was around 14. I have them so much in fact that I just got used to them. Of course you can't actually get used to them, you'll always start panicking, but I don't try to throw myself around like other people. I just sit there and look at the ceiling until I fall asleep again, or when my alarm goes off. This time I was lucky since it was only around 30 minutes until my alarm went off. Now I have some explaining to do. Whenever I have sleep paralysis I don't have those weird demon things floating around in my room. Usually I just can't move, but this time was different. I came home from work and turned on the TV. My favorite show was on. Perfect, what could go wrong about this? My thought was cut off by a knock on the door. I opened it but nothing was there. Weird, I thought who would be ding-dong ditching at 7. I poked my head out and looked to my left. Nothing. Okay, well then I'll look to my right. Someone just turned the corner towards the elevators. Hey. I exclaimed. Did you knock on my door by any chance? Leaving the door open, since I knew the doors they have in this apartment building don't close on their own, I followed the unknown individual. I turned the same corner, only to find an empty hallway. Bummed that I didn't find who knocked on my door. I headed back towards my room. I opened the locked door with my keycard and went in. I sat on the couch and watched my show for a bit until my stomach started grumbling and my eyes were slowly becoming harder to keep open. After I ate a snack I walked towards my bed and face planted onto it. I couldn't sleep automatically, so I started scrolling through Reddit. I finally drifted to sleep at around 11 PM and as quickly as I fell asleep I woke up. It was 5:15 when I opened my eyes. My head was tilted in such a way on my pillow I could only see the doorway to my room. The lights I had forgotten to turn off flooded into my dark room. I knew I was in my usual paralysis, so I didn't bother to move. I only needed to wait 30 minutes until my alarm would go off and I would regain control of my body. Minute 1. Nothing happened. I sat there wide-eyed staring at the open door of my room. Minute 2. Heard footsteps somewhere, thought it could have been coming from outside the room or in the room above me. Minute 3. I see shadows in the light pouring into my room. This is where I begin to become terrified. Minute 4. Sweat covers my face. I start breathing really hard. The footsteps get louder and louder and the shadows start coming and going. Minute 5. Someone walks past my room's doorway. It was a person 100%. Minute 6. I hear things get moved around. I was being robbed while having sleep paralysis. Minute 7. The thoughts of death start flooding through my head. The thought of, I'm going to die today, ricochets through my skull. Minute 8. Quiet. Minute 9. I noticed that once the clock hit 5:45 I was going to die. My alarm would go off and whoever was just outside my room would rush into my room and murder me. Minute 10. I begin to cry. Sweating doubled. Sound started to escape my throat. Minute 11 to 15. Hurried movement. Minute 16. Felt like I was going to throw up. Minute 17 to 20. Huge headache. Moaning got louder, still a whisper, but now was actually audible. Minute 21. All my attention was going toward looking at the door and listening to the ticking of the clock. Minute 22 to 25. The person in my room is now standing in my doorway. Minute 26 to 28. I was getting ready for my doom. Minute 29. Tick tock 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 tick tock. Minute 30. Alarm goes off and I jump toward it. I slap my hand on it and it stopped beeping. I turn and the figure was still there. It started running for it. Instead of chasing I waited until it was a good distance from the door before running and locking it. I called the police and they came. They allowed me to sit in one of their cars since I was afraid. When the police came back they let me into the house. It was obviously ransacked. Things were moved, cabinets were opened, but the thing that scared me the most was that one of my knives were missing. The government deployed me to a country that doesn't exist. I hate to say I'm a typical military guy. Worn out by too many deployments in the early 2000s, and I just wasn't there for my wife and kids, like I should have been. After last deployment to Kuwait, I came home to an empty house and divorce papers. It was the wake-up call I needed. I ended my 20 years of service with the army with a coin from the commander and my discharge papers in my hand. I was reborn. I hit the job market hard. I knew a guy like me, infantry grunt for 20 years with no college education and bad knees needed to apply for specific careers. I turned in applications to the local police station, the FBI, even the CIA on a whim. Unfortunately, I didn't hear back from anyone. I just wanted to provide for my kids, pay my mounting bills and maybe possibly get my ex-wife to look at me the way she used to. Just as I was starting to lose hope when my phone rang at 3 AM, startling me awake. Hello. I muttered gruffly. Good morning. We have your mission. Do you accept? A pleasant female voice responded. My what? Mission? Is this some kind of joke? SFC Sanders, we have chosen you for a specific mission. This is a chance to serve your country again. Also a tax-free bonus awaits if you are successful. Do you accept? She lowered her pleasant tone somewhat seductively when she said successful. I don't know what came over me. This felt real. Like a second chance to be a part of something bigger than myself again. I felt just like I did when I first enlisted at 18 to fight terrorists. Count me in. The next thing I know I had received a set of instructions to meet at a specific location in 3 days along with a packing list in my email. I spent the next day packing my rucksack in my old familiar way. It didn't dawn on me to ask more questions. I still wasn't used to questioning authority. I met up with my ex-wife, Samantha, to kiss my kids goodbye. Samantha wasn't happy about me deploying again, but she knew she couldn't stop me. The night before my deployment I couldn't sleep. I felt uneasy and started having second thoughts. I looked at some old pictures of my kids and remembered they needed new clothes for the school year, college funds and food on the table. I promised myself I would take them on an epic vacation when I returned, whenever that may be. Once 2 AM hit, I grabbed my rucksack, a second go bag, and the set of instruction the agency provided me. It led me 3 hours out of my hometown to an old, abandoned airstrip. I parked and walked inside the airport. It was empty. I looked at the instructions. Meet us at Terminal 4. I walked through the dark, eerie terminal where the early morning light couldn't penetrate the dirt-encrusted windows. Terminal 4 was the furthest one. I struggled to see anyone in the darkened hallway. My second thoughts were amplifying by the second. This must be a mistake. This doesn't make sense. But I kept walking. The terminal led to a small jetway. I walked down it. Suddenly a door slammed behind me. I turned around, my heart going a mile a minute. I pushed it, kicked it, raged at it. It wouldn't budge. The only way out was forward. I cautiously moved forward. The jetway curved, and I slowly moved around the bend. The jetway ended at a plane. I moved towards the plane, and saw there was no one there. I tactically moved through the small jet and no one was on board with me. Even the pilot's cabin was locked, but I couldn't hear anyone inside. Suddenly the engine roared on and the plane jerked backwards, knocking me down. I smacked my head on the corner of the armrest and saw stars. The jet's door slammed violently and the plane moved quickly down the runway. I wiped the blood off my temple, cursing my luck, and quickly buckled up for the ride.